who's actually going to get real value out of a 65-inch 4K commercial display, and who should just keep scrolling past it. If you're the kind of buyer who worries about spending a chunk of budget on a screen that looks great in the spec sheet but ends up being a headache on the shop floor, you're in the right place. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this video I'm going to walk through the everyday scenarios that determine whether the Samsung QM65R is worth the price tag for a typical small to medium business, and I'll point out the hidden trade-offs that most marketing blurbs gloss over. First off, let's talk about the kind of environment this screen is built for. Samsung markets the QM65R as a 24/7 commercial signage solution, which immediately tells you it's meant to stay on all day, every day, in places like corporate lobbies, retail windows, or conference rooms where you need a reliable, bright picture without glare. If you're looking for a consumer-grade TV that you'll occasionally power down after a movie night, you're probably over-spec-ing. The 500 nit brightness and the non-glare panel are really designed to punch through bright ambient light in a lobby or a busy office hallway. In a dim office or a dedicated home theater, those same specifications feel a bit overkill, and you'll end up paying for brightness you'll never need. Now, let's break down the practical strengths that matter when you actually set this thing up. The first thing most installers notice is how thin the unit is. At just a few inches deep, it sits flush against the wall and makes cable management look almost effortless. That matters if you're mounting it in a neat corporate environment where a tangled mess of HDMI and power cords would immediately signal a lack of professionalism. The built-in Wi-Fi is another real-world convenience. You can connect the display to your corporate network without hunting for a spare Ethernet port, which speeds up deployment for IT teams that have to roll out multiple screens across a campus. The upscaling engine is a quiet hero. Samsung's intelligent UHD upscaling claims to take any 1080p or even lower resolution source and stretch it to 4K without looking pixelated. In practice, that means if you're feeding the screen a standard PowerPoint deck or a live stream video at 720p, the image still looks crisp on that 65-inch canvas. I've seen this in a client's break room where they run a rotating set of promotional videos sourced from older marketing assets, and the display handles the conversion without any noticeable degradation. That upscaling capability can save you the time and expense of re-rendering all existing content in native 4K. Integration with Cisco WebEx room kits is another practical point. For businesses that already rely on WebEx for video conferencing, this screen essentially becomes a plug-and-play component. The system and architecture means you don't need an external media player to run a conference. The display itself can act as the primary video endpoint. In a mid-size company that holds daily client calls, having one device that doubles as both a signage screen and a conference display reduces the number of moving parts and, by extension, the potential points of failure. On the flip side, there are some drawbacks that only become clear once the unit is installed. The biggest hidden trade-off is the lack of a true HDR workflow. While the panel does support 4K, it tops out at 500 nits, which is fine for bright rooms but falls short when you try to display HDR content that expects 1000 nits or more. If your use case involves showcasing high dynamic range product videos or cinematic content in a dimmed showroom, you'll notice the highlights flatten out. The screen will still look good, but it won't deliver the punch that a dedicated HDR-capable commercial display would. Another practical weakness is the limited range of input ports. The QM65R ships with HDMI, but it doesn't include a full suite of professional connectors like SDI or DVI that some broadcasting setups still rely on. That means if your content workflow is entrenched in older hardware, you'll need an external converter, which adds both cost and an extra point of failure. For a pure IT environment that already uses HDMI or can stream over the network, this isn't a deal-breaker, but it does narrow the audience. Temperature and ventilation are also worth mentioning. Because the unit is designed for continuous operation, it runs a fairly aggressive fan system. In a tightly sealed conference room with limited airflow, the fan noise can become mildly distracting after a couple of hours. Most reviewers say it's not loud enough to ruin a meeting, but if you're planning to use the screen in a small, quiet boardroom, you might want to test it with the door closed before committing the whole budget. So, who should definitely consider buying the Samsung QM65R? If you're a facilities manager at a corporate office, a retail chain looking to standardize digital signage across multiple locations, or a school district that needs a durable, bright screen for assembly halls, this model checks the right boxes. The